He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God. In Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flies by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For He shall give His angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet, because He hath set His love upon me. Therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. For our meditation, I'm reading 3 paragraphs from the Inward Journey. There are miracles in the Spirit of which the world knows nothing. Such is the testimony that comes to us from the lips of George Fox. Our lives are surrounded day by day and night after eventful night by the stupendous revelations of what man is discovering about the world around him. Each day we seem to penetrate more deeply into the process of nature. Thousands of men and women with utter devotion give themselves to the pursuit of secret disclosures from the chamber of mysteries of which they themselves are a part and from which they have come forth. It is as if there is a mighty collective and individual effort to remember what they were before the mind became mind and the body became flesh and blood. So successful has been the appropriation of the knowledge of the mysteries of air and wind and earth, that what a decade ago would have startled and frightened the most matured adult is today taken for granted by the simplest child. We speak of going to the moon, not as denizens of the shadows, where unrealities tumble over one another in utter chaos. Rather, we speak of going to the moon and back again with voices that are brimming over with an arrogance that even a God may not command. But let one arise in our midst to speak of secrets of another kind. Let one say that the world of the Spirit has vast frontiers which call to us as our native heath. At once, the deep split in our spirit reveals itself. Out of our eyes, as we listen, there leaps the steady glow of recognition, while our lips speak of superstition and delusion. Can the miracles in the Spirit be real, be true? Because they seem always to be personal and private, does this not add to their unreality? The miracles in the Spirit, what are they? The resolving of inner conflict upon which all the lances of the mind have splintered and fallen helplessly from the hand. The daring of the Spirit that puts to rout the evil deeds and the decadent unfaith. The experiences of new purposes which give courage to the weak, hope to the despairing, life to those burdened by sin and failure. The quality of reverence that glows within the mind, illumining it with incentive to bring under the control of spirit all the boundless fruits of knowledge, the necessity for inner and outer peace as the meaning of all men's striving, the discovery that the covenant of brotherhood is the witness of the work of the Spirit of God in the life of man, and the hymn of praise offered to him as thanksgiving and glory. Thou who builds the nest for the bird that has lost his sight, build thou for us, for we too are blind. The dilemmas in the wilderness. In the book it is written, then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was after a hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city, and setteth him on a pinnacle of the temple, and saith unto him, if thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning thee, the 91st Psalm, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus said unto him, it is written again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Again the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and saith unto him, all these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then saith Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. The dilemmas may be characterized as the fantasies in the wilderness. You may recall, those of you who were here last Sunday, that in the course of our discussion it was pointed out that in my thought man is a space binder and a time binder. That he is a creature of the earth. He is a part of the stuff of life. And at the same time, he is a time binder. There is a dimension of his personality, of his life, that always transcends the limitations of his creatureliness. He is always exhibiting the rather basic principle of the Gothic arch. The pillars rooted and grounded with their flying buttresses in the earth. Earth bound, earth fixed, earth grounded. While they support the great sweeping arches reaching into infinity, the time-bound and the timeless, the universal and the particular, the infinite and the finite, man has the body of an animal, the face of a man, and always there is something in him that wants to fly, that wants to soar, that wants to transcend, that wants to break out and spill over and reach beyond. After 40 days, in this fantasy that was going on in the mind of Jesus, growing out of the tremendous religious experience which he had in the Jordan, an experience which gave to him a sense of sanction that in one way or another belongs to the high moments, the peak moments of the human spirit. That moment in which it seems as if all that is meaningful, all that is significant, all that is purposeful, all that is fundamental in existence gives to me its support in the undertaking which is mine. And he describes it in very pictorial language. The heavens open, And the Spirit descended upon him like a dove. And he, no one else, it was his sense, his dream, he heard the voice say, I approve of your life. How then does a man live day by day so that in the living of his life he will do no violence to the central sanction to which at one critical creative moment in his life he gave the nerve center of his consent? And this was the problem. So after 40 days, he was hungry, and he said, if my experience of the eternal is as I sensed it and felt it at that insightful and dramatic moment, then I ought to be able to live that way all the time. But I'm hungry. Men must have bread to eat. Bread. There's an old Zulu adage which says, fully bellied child says to empty bellied child, be of good cheer. Only the empty bellied child has the right to say to the empty bellied child, be of good cheer. Bread. Man must have bread. But the way the insight turned up in him, man must not live by bread. But this is not right. Man does live by bread. This is a practical world, and a man must find a way by which he can build a windbreak against the impersonal operation of the society around him, so that behind it he may have some measure of tranquility, so as to establish a sense of his own being and reproduce his kind with some measure of tranquility and peace. This is a practical world. Man must have bread. Man does not live by bread, but he does live by bread. He does not live by bread. He does not, he does. All along. Perhaps all through the night, who knows? There's no one to tell us. This was the squeeze play in which he was caught and held. Something is wrong with this. Man does live by bread, but man does not quite live by bread, maybe man. And finally, there began to move around as a rumor in his spirit one little whispering word, one little whispered word, alone. And it kept building and building until from all the hills, everywhere, it began to shout, alone, alone, alone. That's it. Man does not live by bread. Alone. But by every word that issues out of the mouth of God, there is the sweeping arch, the hungers of the mind, the heart, the spirit. These must be nourished. I will live into the fulfillment of the experience of my peak moment of illumination by recognizing that this is a very practical world, but the reality of the practical does not exhaust the possibility of reality. This is the issue. So I will recognize the pillars that support the arches. I will salute them. I will be grounded in them, but I will let the bias, the leaning, the prejudice of my life always register on the side of the hungers of the mind and the spirit. For without these being nourished, the pillars begin to crumble and the life begins to rot. And the second fantasy took him to the pinnacle of the temple, and in his mind, he said, if I can, suppose I did jump from the pinnacle, what would happen? It's an interesting fantasy. It's almost like the fantasy that I suppose all children have, but I'm sure I had when I was a boy, when I felt that I'd been really misunderstood and mistreated by my mother and my grandmother. I imagined myself dead and in my coffin, and all the weeping that was going on. Rather morbid, but suppose I did go up there and I did jump. The world, the basic ground of life is not orderly. Perhaps there is no structure of dependability that sustains all of the for instances of life. And this is what the tempter said, that there is no structure of dependability. The natural order is not grounded in any logic, really. And if you, the time binder, if you can get your mind so to brood over the stuff of the order, you can transcend it at every point and do as you please. If you know enough, if you have enough moral character, if you are good enough, you can stand outside of the relentless logic of the rhythm of the order and ignore it and function without any responsibility to the fact that you are grounded in the order yourself because you have a mind. I was examined by one of my friends who was a very excellent physician. And my annual examination, and it was many years ago, so it has nothing to do with my present doctor. And he sent me to all of the various people to do their various things, tests and so forth. And at the end of about 5 or 6 days, he sent for me, and there's always something very fateful about that visit. And I sat in the chair, and he sat at his desk with the manila folder. And he opened it and then began looking at sheets and and he went all the way through and finally came to the end and held one sheet for a little while, and then time stood still. And then finally he put it back and he said, "Fine." And he closed the folder and he said to me, "You are in pretty good shape for your age." And he talked rather learnedly about what weight would do and, all the things which I felt but did not understand. And then I looked at him. Now, he was not as tall as I, and he weighed about 225 pounds. He thought that his body knew that he was a doctor. His body did not know that he was a doctor. His body knew precisely what my body knew, that he was storing up more caloric units than he was burning up. He thought that his knowledge, his skill, his insight would somehow, in some magical manner, give him immunity against the relentless logic of the throb of the natural order in which he's grounded and rooted. This is the dilemma of the natural order. That there is a way by which it is possible, because man has a mind, for him to so operate that he will be an exception to the rule, to the order. Nations feel that way. This is one of our perils, isn't it, as a nation? We are powerful, and we are fat, and we are rich. We brooded over nature until we were able to get into our keeping the secrets of the energy of the atom. The first great creative expression of our gratitude was to build a bomb. We are not bound by the order that binds the little nation, the poor nation, the backward nation. This is the peril, this is the cruel dilemma. For, I have a conviction that there are two fundamental ways by which men or nations experience the wrath and or the love of God. I think that if we understand the secrets of nature and are able to establish some creative affinity between the rational order inherent in the stuff of mind and the rational order in the external world, so that there's a flowing together. And we use this wisdom and this knowledge, this insight, this expertise as the angelos of God, healing and redeeming and making secure and healthful and hale. Then as a community, as a society, I think we experience the love of God in this kind of manifestation of benediction. But if we take this and use it as instruments of our own selfishness, narrowness, and bigotry, so that we become avenging angels in the world, then we experience the wrath of God. And both of these are inherent in the rhythm of the nature of life itself. And then there is the dilemma, you see, that is inherent in the Gothic principle, the principle of the Gothic arts. And there is the dilemma that is inherent in the natural order of which we are part, but over against which with our minds we are able to place ourselves as if we were other. And then there is the dilemma of the organized community. How to put this? The dilemma created by the state, by the formal agreement by which men live together on the basis of certain ties that bind, political, social, and economic. And in his fantasy, he was carried to a high place, and he was shown in one swirling moment a vision of the kingdoms of the world. And there was a quickening of the pulse. What would happen if the thing that I feel so deeply about the meaning of life became a part of the very essence of the kingdoms of this world? And the tempter said, look at them all. They are good to look at. They're very attractive. And you can have them. No trouble. You can have them. And what wouldn't someone like you be able to do if you had control of all that power at his head turned around on his neck and trembled? Of course, there's a little formality. Nothing unusual. If you will just give to me to a certain way of living and thinking and feeling and projecting give to me the nerve center of your consent. That's all. I don't want anything else. Just down at the very root of your being, where ultimately your final sanctions rest, where you are literal in your substance, there give your assent. This is, your thinking and your fantasy is quite logical, but it isn't true. It is true that I created the world. I created nature and men and you and everybody. And this you recognize. And from that you concluded something that threw you off. You concluded that since God is the creator of life and the living substance and all manifestations of life in his far-flung creativity, therefore, the creator of life is also the creator of the relationships that exist between the objects of creation. And this is where you are in error in the fantasy. I, said the tempter, I am the creator of the relationships that exist between manifestations of creation. And if you want to make all of the expressions of life become a lung through which the creator of life may breathe, then in order to do this, your priority must be to my concern. And in his desperation, the only answer that Jesus could give was, thou shalt worship God alone, and him only shalt thou serve. And I imagine he said it over and over again. It's sort of a rallying point for his spirit. And the dilemma is this: how can there be a sense of ethical and social responsibility placed at the center of power? We have not found an answer to this. It is the unique prerogative of the state, it seems, as symbolic of the society, to maintain the power of veto and certification over the private life. And there seems to be no margin of room for the private will to be honored ultimately if it is in conflict with the structure of power in society. this struggle, which is very much a part of what many of us are going through now, the conscience, the private conscience, over against the command and the order of the state. This has been expressed in very graphic terms and in terms of religion by the poet of the desert, Badger Clark. And he's talking about the Civil War, and this is how he puts it. My father prayed as he drew a bead on the gray coats back in those blazing years when the house was divided. Bless his old heart. There never was truer or kinder, yet my father prayed while hoping that the ball from his clumsy old musket might thud to the body of some hot-eyed young Southerner and tumble him limp in the mud of the Vicksburg trenches. That was my father, praying and shooting, wholeheartedly, never a doubt. But what about me? In my day of battle, could I put my prayers behind a slim Springfield bullet? Hardly, except to mutter, Jesus, you and I part company here. My country calls for my body and takes my soul also. Do you see those humans herded and driven against me? Turn away, Jesus, for I must kill you. Why? Such evils bring some vast, vague good to my country. I do not know. The only thing that I know is that today my business is killing, and my gods must be luck and the devil till this thing is over. Turn away, Jesus. Your eyes make me slack in my duty. That was my father. My father could mix his prayers with his shooting. And he was a great, good man in his generation. But if I should pray like him, I'd spoil it by laughing. What is the matter? How finally do I vote when the ground of my moral integrity are at stake? This is the dilemma of the state, the dilemma of the Gothic principle, the dilemma of the natural order, the dilemma of the state. I saw a man pursuing the horizon. Round and round he sped. I was disturbed at this, so I accosted the man. I said, "It is futile. You can never." "You lie," he cried, and ran on and on. And on. Our closing hymn in the Blue Book is number 45.